Now it's connecting.
Webinar is now streaming live on YouTube.
Yes.
Mine is still loading. Are directing. And I'm going to assume we are live. Yes, we are. I just saw our mugs. Good evening, everyone. This is Aeon Byte Live, episode number 16, I believe. Happy heresies and welcome to the desert of the real, the YouTube live of the real, if you want to call that. Thanks, everyone, for being here. I see everybody starting to roll into the chat room. So as always, this is live. If you have a question, please ask Vance or leave it there in the chat. We will get to you, hopefully. If we also do super chats, so you will be put at the top of the queue. And of course, it's always great to donate. And as always, this is live. It will be again on YouTube as soon as this interview is done. And in a couple of days, I will put this out in all the usual channels, iTunes, Spotify, all the podcasters of your choice. So it's going to be a good one as always, and I hope you enjoy. So tonight, we have the pleasure of having my friend, someone I have enjoyed many cups of coffee in the Windy City and many good conversation. He's been a past guest, and that is none other than Herman, or Dr. HermanSJr. How you doing, Herman? Good to have you back.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It is always a wonderful feeling being with you and being on the show. Even having coffee, like you said, in Chicago there.
Yes,
when I'm in Chicago.
Yes, when you are, it was a great time, and now you are you are broadcast, or you are live, obviously, but you are in India, right? In the morning there.
Yes, it is very early morning. My work takes me everywhere across the world. Fortunately, I love the nomadic life. I got my so I'm here at the academy, one of the academies that I teach at in India. The academy that I teach at here, Right Academy and Research Center, started by Dr. Chandrababu. So he was kind enough to let me use the whiteboard. So we have some psychological questions that we'll dive into and test and everything if it comes up, and if the audience so pleases, and we'll move from there.
All right, that's exciting. We got a whiteboard. We can write some notes and do some drawings and stick figures and all that good stuff. Awesome. And with us, as always, it is the pleasure to have the Moondog himself ready to solve some of this idiocracy that we're living in here, Vance, or have you given up?
No, I keep on fighting the idiocracy, but the problem is I don't always recognize I'm part of it, you know.
Yes, we all have mind farts. So.
I contribute, yes.
Awesome. Well, right now the chat room looks pretty sparse, so I'm sure they will come. We've got Joyce. Are you serious? Hey, Joyce, how are you? Again, any questions? And I'm going to repeat myself. If you have any questions, please put it there, as Vance says, with the question mark. And so Vance can spot them. If you do a super chat, you will be put at the top, and keep the questions relevant and all that. So welcome, everybody. So it's been a while, Herman. I'd say it's been about, God, I think it was 2014 or 15 since our last interview.
5 years.
Yes. I know we had dinner a couple of years ago when I was in Chicago. I'm no longer in Chicago. I'm just out there in the country near a town called Wakanda, and loving it this time of the year. So, and things have changed. I mean, back then you were basically selling drugs and pimping in Chicago, and now you've kind of got. No, I'm just kidding.
I told you to shut up about that.
yeah, it was supposed to be our secret. No, you were studying there. So what has changed since then? You've got a doctorate and all that, and what are you doing with yourself for the audience?
Yes, well, thank you for asking. A lot of has changed. I've been very fortunate. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a constant nerd. Just study. My whole life is about absorbing knowledge as much as possible. And since that time, before then, and then since that time too, I've just been doing a lot of studying, ramping up on degrees and everything. My doctorate is in metaphysical psychology. It's basically from the what's called the Cambridge of metaphysical schools. And eventually, sometime before I die, I'm hoping to get a secular PhD. So yeah, just ramping up on work and publications and doing a lot of work with training. What I do is I train in holistic vision. So basically that's training people to see the world holistically, to see their arenas, whatever it is, in business and personal life, education, whatever, it doesn't matter, to see the foundations of things, issues, and opportunities. So they're going beyond the distractions and all the variables that distract people so they can see what is really going on in the world, in their life, in themselves and everything. So I consult and train multi-million-dollar businesses, police across the world, universities, doctors. I've been very fortunate to do that. Harvard published writer. So a lot of things that I've been very grateful for, and hopefully I'll be able to continue doing.
Wow, you are a nerd, my friend. Love it. So,
Thank you.
geeking out. So, I guess for the audience, what exactly you said metaphysical psychology? That sort of might be surprising because psychology in our world of
Yeah.
scientism seems to be completely secular, non-spiritual, non-esoteric. What exactly is that, and how did you find this wonderful discipline?
Yeah, well, basically, see, that's a good question. And it's sad that you're able to ask that question because it shows the idiocy that surrounds us here in this idiocracy. The reason I say that is because, yes, typically in academia, I am a part of academia. I teach at multiple educational institutes, universities across the world. Academia really tries to sever whatever metaphysical thing and whatever non-metaphysical thing. And psychology and metaphysics, as you said, are two things that pretty much contradict each other according to traditional academia. However, if you're able to divorce yourself from all the nonsense, the disinformation that's out there, it's not misinformation, it's disinformation for a reason, then you're able to see foundations of, in this case, psychology and metaphysics, and you're able to see the universalities or the universals between the two or between two different things, whatever, and see how they are relatable. So for example, with metaphysical psychology, I'm sure everyone knows metaphysics and psychology. When you combine the two, you're basically looking at the mindset of the study of the mindset based on metaphysics, which is going back to the science of natural things or going back to the physical world. Now, if I may here, the question gets really tricky. These days, it's very hard for me. If I want to answer someone honestly, it's very hard to answer straightforward because of all this disinformation. So typically, there are two types of metaphysics in this world that the lay person knows about, okay? Metaphysics that's in philosophy, which is the generic thing, you know, study of the philosophy of the mind and all that stuff. That's the academic metaphysics. That's not what I do and what metaphysicians do. Genuine metaphysicians, not the flakes and charlatans, which unfortunately metaphysics is plagued with flakes and charlatans. So metaphysics means two things. Whenever you study something, you want to go back to the etymology. You want to define it first. So meta means above or beyond. It's a Greek word. And physics typically means natural science, or more correctly, the physical. So metaphysics is the study of what's beyond or above the physical. Now, why are we talking about that? Well, because there's a problem with that. There's a problem because, well, what does that mean, beyond the physical? I mean, aren't atoms kind of in the range of physical, not physical? Aren't quantum physics kind of in the range of physical, non-physical? Meditation also too. So there's really a gray area. It's not a clear divide between what someone would say, this is physical, this is non-physical. And to further this point, a lot of sciences that we have these days, such as neuroscience, EKG, electroencephalograph, all these different things are now showing us that all these things that were considered metaphysical nonsense, you know, crap, are actual science. So we're seeing how meditation really does help you. We're talking about studies from Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, all the big guys. And now they say, well, that's not metaphysics anymore, that's science. So metaphysics is becoming an ever decreasing field. So it's very hard to say what's metaphysical and what's not. So that's a long answer to your question, but I just wanted to touch upon that because that question that you asked was beautiful, because it touches upon the very issue of this whole idiocracy that has been created and perpetuated by certain entities, because the more you confuse a population or an entity, the more you pretty much have them, unless they wake up.
Oh, I agree. There's obviously we agree on this 100%. We've definitely talked about it for many years. And I think you and I and Vance and everybody in the chat room is here to do something about it or understand it more. But before we get into the $64,000 question of idiocracy, one more term we should probably understand. You said holistic. That's another term that gets confusing. People
Correct.
think New Age, think of diet. What's your context of holistic, Herman?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a good clarifying question. Holistic, again, anytime you try to do something, study something, whatever, first, before you do anything, go to the etymology of it. Go to the first foundation, or the foundation of it, the first instance of it being used, because that is typically, there are some exceptions, but majority of the time, that is the, whatever you want to call it, genuine definition or primal definition, whatever. So to answer your question, holistic just means looking at a system in regards to all of its parts. So instead of allopathy, how doctors typically treat patients these days, especially in Western circles, though that's changing a lot, where they treat a symptom, they're treating one modality of the body, the arm or the leg, whatever. They're not focusing on the whole body. So holistic is focusing on a system, in this example, the human body, and treating it as a whole. So now you have a lot of holistic doctors, thank God, popping up all over in the Western world. So they're looking at, okay, you have pain in your head. Is that localized pain, or excuse me, is it pain from a local issue, or is it deferred pain, maybe coming from somewhere else, some other source? Well, okay, what's your background? How's your spiritual life, for those that are into the spiritual life? How's your family life? How's your work situation? How's your stress? All these different variables you have to look into if you want to solve any system or change any system, in this case, the system being a human body. So when I teach holistic vision to whoever, if it's cops or multi-million dollars companies, or even single parents, which I do as well, I'm teaching them to divorce themselves from their current mindset through many very intensive psychological drills, which are deceptively simple. They're designed to be deceptively simple. You would swear you know the answer, but you really don't. And you're able to divorce yourself from your current mindset and see things holistically. So you can see your relationships as they really are. Who's really your friend? Who's really, not. Some of this can be a little bit eye-opening, I'll just say. See how you really are, no nonsense. I don't deal with pseudoscience or any garbage crap or hippie stuff. Sorry if you're a hippie, but I hope you get my point. So yeah, no nonsense, hardcore science. And I get them to see their job, their world from a holistic aspect. So if I do this today, it's going to offer me this potential in 5 days from now, 10 years from now. If I do it this way, I can feed my child or my children much better. I can do this. I can see the world differently. So when you are done with the training, the program, whatever, it is impossible for you to walk away. And I really mean this. It's impossible to walk away as the same person. You're going to be a completely different person. You're going to think differently. Your thinking foundation is completely ripped out. And I really mean that. So you can see foundations. You can see the true core of issues, of people, situations, whatever, it doesn't matter. Gnosticism, religion, whatever truth. And you can divorce yourself very quickly from the distractions that every person in the herd, the sheep, is going towards, and you're able to be, the manager that stands out and get the raises or whatever it is you want to do in your life. It doesn't matter. It's not motivation. I don't care for motivational speaking because it works for maybe a day, maybe a week if you're lucky. It's going in and ripping the hell out of your mindset and completely rebuilding it holistically.
So, okay, so you're not like Tony Robbins without the
No,
sexual misconduct. So,
no.
okay, well, for example, you talk about a variety of clients, a police department, university. What if you approach them? What exactly are you solving? Are you saying you can see the whole picture? Or are you saying you tell them we can help these individuals reach a certain level of thing? What exactly is, I guess, the elevator pitch, or how are you helping these very different organizations with different problems? You would think.
Understood. Well, it depends on what they want. I do two things: consulting and training. Typically, it's training because I don't want to be there. I've done my job when I'm no longer needed. I like to have myself, I'll use the word fired, but not fired. I'll just say not needed. Sorry, fired is not the right word. So when I'm not needed, I've done my job. So if I'm doing consulting, like for example, I just did consulting for a call center in America where I went in and I just looked at their systems because they were bleeding about $50,000 every week, which equates to, I believe, $2.5 million if I'm doing my math properly. Sorry, it's like 7 a.m. here, so forgive me if my math is all screwed up.
You need your coffee, man.
So I went in and I looked at all of their human capital systems. Human capital basically just means the skills and potential of humans or people. So human capital systems are IT systems. And I said, well, you're doing this wrong. You have everything segregated, everything siloed. Everything should interact with each other. Everything should be holistic. So every system knows what the other one's doing. So we did a lot of stuff. It was a lot of time, but now they're saving $2.5 million every single year with. Now, that's not because, I'm not saying, oh, that's because of me or that nonsense. It's because of the ability to look at something and say, that's not the problem. That is the problem. It's not up there. That's superficial. That's superficial. You've had your guys and girls, spending 50K a year on this problem, but it's this variable right here. You're not attacking that variable. You're just doing superficial stuff. And the reason why I like Gnosticism for a very long time, especially when I came upon you, Miguel, quite some years ago, is because, in my opinion, I've done a lot of studies on religions for a long time. I've been studying for over 32 years of many different things. So forgive me if there's some religions out there that I haven't come upon. I don't want to insult anyone, but in my opinion, Gnosticism is, I'll say, the number one. I hope I'm accurate in saying that. In my opinion, it's the number one religion for people who are really trying to get at the truth and try to avoid nonsense. And if I can go one step further, I hope this is okay to say, in my experience, everyone's different, there are always anomalies, but coming across Gnostic people and Gnosticism, it seems to be a little bit more elevated. And I'm trying to be very careful with my words. Forgive me for the pause here. A little bit more elevated than the typical religions. So that's one of the things I like, because like I said, I love knowledge. So going back to your question, if I don't give you the answers to your issue, when I go to police, train police or whoever, it doesn't matter. I don't give you the answers. I would have to be a consultant, an expert in every single field, in law, in police, law enforcement, HR, all that stuff, and you can't be. So what I do is I give you the ability to find the answers and go and get things done on your own. So you are considered as one of the greatest thinkers in that field. We're not talking good, we're talking great. So I hope that answers your question. I get you to see the foundation of things and see things holistically to move forward.
No, it makes perfect sense. And yeah, you're right. I think what did Elaine Pagel said, it's that Gnosticism was basically graduate school, getting your doctorate, and Christianity was kindergarten. So yes, yeah, it challenges your mind. It really is metaphysical psychology, because they were trying to understand the
Oh, yeah.
mind, trying the world as it interacted. Carl Jung said they were the history's first depth psychologists, and that's what they were. So it makes perfect sense. And later on, even the Hermeticists were unlocking the mind, and that influenced a lot of the Renaissance scholars, the idea to be able to
Right.
learn and hold incredible knowledge in the brain with Giordano Bruno and all that. So you ain't whistling Dixie. So good stuff. So why don't let's get to the main event, Idiocracy. I'm sure you feel that our culture is suffering from idiocracy, and a lot of it is probably manipulation. I keep going back to the what did Aldous Huxley said? It says we don't even have to worry about burning books, because we'll live in a time where people just aren't even going to pick up books. They've been dumbed down with drugs and media and all that. And of course, today we're in a state of high tension, a state of kind of divide and conquer. Everybody's against each other. Seems everybody's shadow is out on the internet. Nobody wants to integrate it. But anyway, that's my take. What your take, I'm sure, agrees. What's the issue and what's the problem today with our culture in general, Herman?
In my opinion, and this is something I'm unfortunately well versed with, I wish I could argue with you, but I sadly can't. In my opinion, it's that these systems, I'm trying to be careful with my words, these systems that are out there are just way too good. And let me say this, unfortunately, with all of my heart. As someone who works with, law enforcement and other entities, you have no idea how deep things go and how complicated and unraveled up things really are. And I mean that more than I can possibly say on this interview. That is no joke. When you swear you have what's going on after you've studied for 10 years, after you've wasted so many hours of your life, and you've tried to improve your life, your loved ones, your children's life, you come across something else 10 years later, and it completely just throws away what you learned in 10 years. And you're like, are you goddamn kidding me? And you're just blown away. I hate to say it, but that is the truth. That is completely the truth. It is far more sinister and complicated and designed in such a beautiful way, and I mean that controversially beautiful, of course, that most people, definitely the everyday person, will have not a damn clue. The people that live and die in this earth across space and time, most of them will never see anything even close. But to the people that are more, whatever, enlightened, knowledge seekers, whatever you want to call them, Gnostics, it's pretty sad and disrupting that when you see all these things, you just turn the corner and you're like, Jesus Christ, I had no idea. It's far more worse.
Yeah, it's that red pill. So you're saying, I mean, what do they say? Key bono, follow the money trail. But you're basically saying this network just keeps going up and up and up. And of course, there's disinformation getting there. And of course, all of us have our same programming. I was emailing somebody who was talking about, oh, I glad I don't believe the silliness, like whatever, flat earth. And I'm like, well, don't be, hard on flat earthers. I believed the wrong thing for 35 years of my life. All my beliefs, I had to throw them out. And I'm still in a mode of reprogramming. I still get caught in those old tapes, as they say.
Yes, of
And
course.
and even if I see the truth, my behavior still is not aligned with the truth, because I've been programmed to act a certain way towards people, my family, and all that. So yeah,
Yes.
it's brutal. It's almost like when does it stop? And I mean, I guess the question is, how high do you think this goes, and what can we do?
That's a great question. That really is a great question. As I said, I'm in academia too, so I have conversations once in a while with the wonderful Noam Chomsky.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
it,
wow.
yeah, in my opinion, the greatest linguist in all of history. I have a master's. I have 6 university degrees, 2 masters, 2 bachelor, 1 doctor, and 1 associates. And one of my masters is in linguistics, and that's how I came to learn upon him. And I love Noam Chomsky. Now he's turned into a social movement activist. I don't know if you know this.
Oh yeah, I still follow him. He's great.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I actually asked him if I could use one of his quotes in my latest book.
Mm.
So, uh, so I asked him something. I basically was, talking with him, and I'm like, it's so frustrating. How do you wake people up? Is it really worth it these days? Or, should people like us just forget it? It's not going to happen anytime soon, if it ever happens. And he said something beautiful to me. He said, it may seem like Sisyphean labor, but it's the right thing to do. So, and that I told, as a matter of fact, I told him that is so damn cool. I'm gonna say that to every colleague I come across, and I'll have to tell him when we get off this interview. I'll send him an email saying, "Hey, remember I said I was gonna quote you?" So to answer your question, the answer, in my opinion, is to just press on. As my truck driver friend would say, keep trucking, and go ahead and try to get the few that you can. Now, I would say, to further that point and to be more specific, I would say, because of this kind of atmosphere that's just so stupidly, raveled up and with disinformation and everything complicated, the best thing to do is to save yourself first. Just like if you're a lifeguard, unfortunately, if you're saving someone and some obstacle is coming in the way of you and that person that's perhaps unconscious or not unconscious, but you're trying to save, you have no choice. If you're trying to save them, you have to use them as your guard. If one of you must be hit, you have to use them, because if you use yourself, you're both gonna die. Same thing on an airplane. First thing you do is put the mask on yourself, then save the next person next to you. So I believe very strongly that you have to really elevate yourself, just like most maxims in religions and spiritualities across this planet say, elevate yourself or educate yourself or enlighten yourself first, or change the world by changing within first. And unfortunately, that is very true. I say unfortunately because anyone who knows me knows that I am a huge humanitarian. I get hurt very deeply, very quickly when I see that people are suffering. So I wish there was a different way to do it, but the way that you need to do it is to just go and press on with yourself and let others try to evangelize others, if I can use that word, here on Aeon Byte, and, and try to bring them through with you, through your actions, through your words, but mostly your actions. So, excuse me. So that's my opinion. And when you're able to see through all the distractions, all the garbage, the foundations, like I said before, then you're able to move much faster, comparatively speaking. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Vance, do you have a question, or anybody from the chat have a question for Herman?
I see no questions at this point, unless I missed some.
I thought I saw Finn Doe with a
Oh,
question.
here we go.
Maybe
What's the
somebody really
cause of disinformation?
There you go. Yes, I guess, why are they
Oh,
controlling us, or what's the end game for control?
that's that's a great question. Disinformation, to answer that question, the cause of disinformation is whatever the entity doing that disinformation wants to accomplish, obviously. So now that I've gotten that obvious definition either way, which I'm sure the person who asked that question already knew. So in this case of what we're talking about here, all the disinformation with enlightenment or truth or whatever you want to call it, that Gnostics seek and that I seek, is It's very easy what everyone else says. Just imagine what you could not get away with if you had people who were more educated and more knowledgeable about how things really work. And it really is as simple as that. If you have a collective of people who are not, who are pretty stupid, you can do pretty much whatever the hell you want with them. So it really is that simple. It depends on, in this case, with the disinformation of these entities, they want to control things. They just want to keep things for themselves. I mean, when you have a mindset that is very negative, and if there is such a thing as negative, and self-absorbed and jealous, you want to keep everything to yourself. So obviously, you're not going to want to give anything out. It's very similar to the managers in the 70s and before that. Now as well, but not as much. The managers back then especially were more so comparatively hiding information. They're like, oh, I need to keep this to myself, how to do this in this job and this job, how to lead these people. Because if they know it, then I'm not an asset anymore. But now the paradigm in corporate culture, not everywhere, there are a lot of anomalies, but overall, the corporate culture has shifted to be one of more of a team. Okay, and where, oh no, you need to share, so we're all we all help each other and all that stuff. And that touches upon something else that's based on, that borders disinformation, that borders control. For example, I can't stand it when companies say, hey, some company will send you an email after you bought something from them or made a phone call to customer service, and they say, hey, how is our customer service? Just very quick, just hit a frown or smiley face. That's it. It'll take literally 5 seconds. That's it. Oh, that's not bad. Yeah, I love company A. I'm not going to say any company names, but I love company A. Yeah, I just dealt with them. This guy on the phone was wonderful. Yeah, I'm going to do this. You know what you're doing? When you can see the foundation of different things, of different systems, of different problems, opportunities, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're able to see very quickly, okay, now we're in an era where companies are being truly, they're being jerks. They're taking advantage of people. They're downsizing contents of chips and soda and all that stuff, whatever it is you're getting, but increasing the price. Also, what they're doing, they're getting you to give them free market research and free consultation of their systems. So what a lot of people don't realize is that when you do those things, you are giving them, you are being a free worker. Now, a lot of people would argue, well, what the hell, Dr. Herman, that's fine. That's just a tiny little thing. Yeah, of course. But you and you and you and you and 5 million people that do it will add up to tremendous savings for multi-million-dollar companies. And we're talking about even 1% is a huge benefit for them. And also there was I won't say the name, but there was one guy who really irked me. He sent a very long email, maybe 10 paragraphs, about a product of his. So I'm gonna be careful here, about a product of his. And he went on for about 9 paragraphs saying, I understand that my product has helped you with your health. I really want your help. I'm not asking you to make more money for me. I just want to get this information out to people who really need this to help increase their health, to make themselves to make themselves enjoy life more. Don't think of the money. Don't think of me. Think of only the altruistic effect. Imagine if you told one person and that person told one person. So please go to my website, submit a testimonial, and show everyone, and let's spread this to everyone. When I read that, I was really mad. I was very angry because, again, I'm a huge humanitarian, and these companies are doing all these things to take advantage of people, and people typically aren't seeing it. So you're going and you're doing a testimonial, and in your mind, you're thinking, oh yeah, but I'm helping people out. But there's a line where you do it and you don't do it. And in my opinion, everyone's different, but in my opinion, when you're doing something, when companies that most people are complaining about, saying the 99% and the 1% and the corporations are getting all this money and, giving less salaries to people and downsizing and attrition with jobs and employee turnover and all that stuff, you're actually giving them more help. When you do that, you're going out and you're helping that system that's helping to keep you down and give the corporations more money. And you're doing exactly what you shouldn't be doing and what you're complaining about. And people don't see this because they don't see the root cause of things. Again, some may argue that like, oh, it's altruistic. If you think so, then continue doing it. Then don't complain about the companies that are getting more money, getting free market research off of you, your aunt, and getting all this stuff. So that's my opinion here on Aeon Byte number 16.
Sweet 16, man. Sweet 16. Well, let's give the audience some of these truths, and because again, you just gave one. Again, it's the innocuous stuff that can be so dangerous, and they are, of course, data mining us. Again, it's like we go back to the Matrix, where our minds, that's where the real treasure is. It's no longer oil or anything like that. Get that information so they can market it and use it against us. Social media, I mean, right now in this YouTube video, I'm sure there's algorithms that are recording what you and I say for some sort of research that they're going to use. I mean, it's just, it's so ubiquitous. And it's like a giant spider web that never ends. So what would you say would be some other advice or issues of how they manipulate us that maybe others don't know? I mean, I could go on and on. For example, I could say something. I have to remind myself that we haven't lived in a republic for a good 100 years, that the federal government is beyond any hope, that our religious leaders are probably sacrificing children, and they are satanic. And I know it may seem controversial, but like you said, you just got to keep going up the ladder, as even as paranoid as you might be thinking, because like you said, in another 10 years, it's going to be true. It's in your gut. I mean, there probably are archons that are ruling right above, perhaps aliens and whatever. So we just got to keep at it, as crazy as it is. But give us some views of how they're controlling us and what can we do there, Herman?
Sure. Let me preface this answer because you said some things. I have clients.
Allow me to do the crazy stuff if you want, so you don't get in trouble.
Yeah. But in case anyone's watching this, I do have clients that are in law enforcement at different levels, I'm just going to say, and clients that are in metaphysics and contradicting arenas, I'm just going to say, seemingly contradicting, though they're really not. So I'm not saying I agree with that. And I'm not saying I don't agree with that. I'm just being neutral, like switch them.
Right.
So with that said, one of the things that we have to be careful about is a lot of people will say something to me in the beginning when they don't know me and they first come upon me as someone in the street or a new client or something like that. They'll say something like, well, why the hell would we care? What does it matter with if I'm going to give feedback that's going to take 5 seconds to a customer service agent, or to give a testimonial to this guy who's got this product? I'm still helping people. And what the hell are you talking about? How is that going to help multi-million-dollar companies? How is that going to help Gnostics with finding the truth? Well, as soon as people say that, I know immediately that their vision and mindset is limited because they can't see thoroughly how seemingly unrelated things are truly and deeply connected. So when you can't see the things we talked about, like the customer service issue, the testimonial issue, what does that mean? Well, that means your ability or inability, excuse me, your blindness bleeds over into other arenas, such as seeking the truth. You'll pick up a book, let's say book A. Let's be logical here, with logical formulae. Book A, and you'll read book A for chapters 1, 2, and 3. And you'll pick it up and you'll put it down and you'll read book B for chapter 1, 2, and 3. And you say, holy crap, these 2 chapters really changed my life. Whereas someone who perhaps is more versed in seeing the foundation, seeing things holistically, properly, will see these and be like, this didn't say anything. It was a lot of generalities, or it was a lot of things that point over here. But if you know about this, you would know that this is not even possible. So they take those 2 books and just throw them away and carry on. And we're talking about some serious time, frustration mentality and money saving issues. When we're talking about Gnostics, when we're seeking truth, when we're seeking life, you're talking about saving years of your time or hours of your time, days, weeks, months, whatever, because you're chasing something that you couldn't see was more superficial to whatever level than the foundation. If you were to able to see things at the baseline, just like Mitch Horowitz said in, I think it was Aeon Byte number 11, March 25th, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He said something beautiful. He said something like, when you can see the foundation of things, only then can you try to fix and repair things. And when I saw that, I said, I should use that quote for my damn interview, because that's exactly my whole career. Getting the foundation. So to answer your question, the different, if you can't see these things, you can't apply them in other arenas of your life, education, your job, bringing up your children, seeking the truth, whatever it is. So that's the preface there. And regarding your specific question, what are other ways that they do this? Getting free market research is one. Getting free testimonials is another. Another way is by destroying liberal arts. There is a very good article, an exceptional article that Princeton came out with, that if you Google Princeton liberal arts, I'm sure it'll come up. It's on their website. It's a very long webpage, basically stating what I and a lot of people that are similar, like-minded as I, have been saying for decades. Liberal arts is the #1 area of study that helps you increase your intellect, because there's a difference between IQ, intelligence, and crystallized intelligence. Crystallized intelligence basically means anything that you've studied, learned, crystallized, or formed hard into your knowledge. Genuine IQ is more natural, innate ability, though that's arguable. So when you take away liberal arts from a certain social, entity or collective, you're taking away a lot more than just arts and painting and music and all that stuff. You're taking away the ability to see things, to collectively analyze things, and to properly be able to ask the right questions at the right time and attack the variables that you need to attack, and divorce yourself from the variables that are nonsense, that are superficial. So, and all of these greatest thinkers across space and time, they've known this. They've professed this. They've said, you need to study this, you need to study all these different things. And to further that point, when we think of the greatest thinkers in all of history across space and time, typically, there are anomalies, but typically the same names come up of a big pool of people. It's a big pool, but it's a small pool comparatively to the population, of course. So you got Aristotle, Socrates, Avicenna, Gandhi, Jesus, of course, Einstein, Benjamin Franklin. So a lot of these names come up. They're more than that, but typically it's a big pool of names like that. So why do they say that? It's extremely important, because when you're a Gnostic, you need to search for the right damn truth very quickly, because we only have a limited amount of time. There's so much nonsense and stupidity out there that's in play to disinform you. So the reason why these people are the greatest thinkers is because they were able to see across landscapes. If you look up one of the greatest thinkers, most of the time you don't see someone that says like Gandhi, they were one profession, a statesman, one profession. Typically, when you look up the greatest thinkers, they were multiple things. They were mathematicians, astronomers, professors, statesmen, inventors, engineers, all these stuff. Usually that's the case. Again, we're generalizing, so don't anyone say, oh, that's not always the case, then you're not listening to me. So usually that's the case. Why is that the case? These days, if we see someone who's got, this degree in this subject, studies this and this subject, this, they say, oh, that guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he wants. He's not focused. He's not going to get a job. And it's completely against what we need to do. We need to study the liberal arts. They weren't dilettantes. They understood the foundation of things, and they were able to apply it in different arenas. It's not that they studied, one thing and applied it. They were able to see the foundation. So if we have a population that studies liberal arts, that studies the foundation of things, that studies things holistically, whatever it is, if you're trying to search for the real Jesus or the demiurge or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Then you're automatically and very quickly, comparatively speaking, going to arm yourself with a power that most across this world don't have and can't see. So if you are a Gnostic, you're able to perpetuate your learning for yourself and your family if they're also Gnostics, and help the world in turn, ideally, because you're changing yourself. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I think it's spot on. Yeah, liberal arts, it's one way to destroy. But I think in the chat I'm watching, and Juan Escobar has a good point about how Noam Chomsky believes the official narrative 9/11. There's a mini debate. And I agree, but I think he's dropping the ball. Somebody so smart. But at the same time, my point is, one, everybody has blind spots. Again, I have a lot of blind spots still, but at least I admit it. But two, academia sometimes doesn't get it, or they have the biggest blind spots. I'm sure you run into it. There's the old saying, what does a PhD mean? Pile high and drive. And then there's the old saying that's attributed to George Orwell that some ideas are so idiotic that only an intellectual would believe. So why do you think those with the doctorate sometimes are the easiest ones to fool?
Well, that question is very, very dangerous. Let me go back to what I said before.
Sure.
You want to define things when you answer something, and you want to look at things from different angles. When you're looking at stuff holistically, you must always look at things from different angles. So before we answer your question, you have to think, well, what's in it for the entity that is screwing things up, or keeping things back, stifling things, or being an idiot, asking questions, or excuse me, holding things back, holding true potential by letting real metaphysics, not nonsense, science-backed metaphysics out into the world. Why are they doing that? Well, that's called vested interest. They have a lot to lose. So I'm sure most of your audience, and definitely you guys, already know that in academia, it is ridiculous. You must conform. If you do not conform in academia, it is a high probability that you will lose your job. It doesn't matter what the research shows. If you go against, I'm not kidding, if you go against the status quo, you are in high risk of losing your job. Now, it's not academia that's the problem. It's the guys above academia, because you always have a boss. So academia is only doing what they need to do collectively to keep their job. Even the guys that are pressing the underlings to shut up, they are being pressed from above. So, and that's true what Orwell said, what you said with only an idiot, or excuse me, an idiot.
Some ideas are so idiotic, only an intellectual would believe, yes.
Thank you. I love how you can just come up with those quotes like that. Thank you. So, yeah, that's absolutely.
I'm a meme guy, I guess.
Mean, badass, coffee drinking.
Bad out of hell.
Wonderful. So that's absolutely true, because a lot of the ideas initially, they do look stupid. And as a matter of fact, there's a quantum physicist, Dr. John Hagelin, who has said that he doesn't like to talk about quantum physics to lay people, to the non-quantum physics people, I'll just say, or because the ideas are just so stupid or idiotic sounding. An uneducated person will say, you're an idiot, you got a PhD and you're believing that a particle can be here or a wave can be there. I won't get into quantum physics, but I'm just making stuff up here. So you believe this? To the educated people, it's like, well, yes, of course. But the people who are programmed and indoctrinated with nonsense or limitations, I'll say, where they can't see things holistically, can't see things thoroughly, properly, they're going to say, oh, that's stupid, and immediately throw it away. Then they continue working their life in whatever job that they can't stand, doing their, walking forward to their house they may or may not like, their life. and they can't change because they just threw away something that may have been pivotal to their life. Now, maybe quantum physics isn't pivotal to their life. That's not the point. The point is seeing something differently that they typically don't see. And academia is just another variable in this whole system. They're controlled. Be careful, because I'm in academia. They're controlled, and they need to keep their jobs. Remember, their families, they have children. They need to buy food every morning. They need to buy
No,
milk and
you're
drink.
right.
They're
You're right.
just
I
like
mean,
you.
even we talk about the mythicist Christ. If you don't believe in the historical Jesus in academia, you're going to lose your job. That's why people like Joe Atwell, they can do what they do. I mean, Robert Price basically got, who you heard, got run out of academia and had to do things independently for his views. And Noam Chomsky, I think he said it's not that you get fired. Like, the media is a joke in this country across the world. It's just a propaganda machine for the corporations. But he said there's a filtering system. You may not get fired, but you're not going to get the raise. You're not going to get to be in the front of the camera. You're slowly going to just get swept away. So yeah, very well said, Herman. So Vince, do you have a comment about Idiocracy, what we're talking about, or any audience member questions?
Yeah, how did you know? I've got a comment. Let's look at the jobs of the academics holistically. What are they being paid to do? Right? Like a lot of academics probably figure, oh, I've got my PhD. I'm going to be going for the truth. I'm going to be doing research. But I doubt very much when you look at the big picture and all the money that flows and all the students that come in and all the corporations that sponsor the universities and all the government grants and so forth. I don't think that the institutions, which I consider kind of living entities, with us as cells, I don't think institutions see the jobs of academics the way the academics do. So they have another agenda and it's not obvious. So, one of the things is to back up the consensus reality of the day, which is probably going to be like, look at all these things like these medical studies. This will kill you. This is no good. That's not no good. I mean, and a lot of the stuff, if you look at it a little bit, the science is like horrid, though they took some sort of statistical sample of something and they oftentimes use fallacious logic. And if you read carefully, sometimes they admit it. But who's paying for this? Is Merck in back of it? The drug companies, or one of the things that I'm convinced of, and not that exercise is bad at all for you, but I think the physical fitness industry is in back of a lot of this. That they're always saying you'll die, if you don't go to the gym. Well, who's making the money? I always think about who's benefiting from this. So that's my way. And I watch out for, like, when those guys said, that guy said to you, Dr. Herman, I'm not trying to make money, but blah, 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 blah. As soon as you hear the but, you stop there and said, all right, what did he just say? I'm not trying to make money. Yeah, he's trying to make money. Yeah. Just the way the telemarketers, right? You can block the advertising calls, but now what do? They give you surveys. Well, surveys are allowed to call you, so they get around these things. And the last thing I want to say is that the art of listening to propaganda is very, very important in this day and age, to listen to the signs of it. And that's part of liberal arts, right? Rhetoric. So you've got to hear and know all the different types of propaganda and how they're constructed. And then your eyes are opened and then you can hear what they're doing to you. And it just gives a kind of defense. And that's where it comes back to Gnosticism, because we want to know, we're depending on ourselves to filter the information coming in and not just being led around by it. And so.
You went on mute, Vince.
Oh, you know why? Hang on. I'm trying a new thing here. You can
I
hit
thought the
space
government
bar.
had already censored you while
Ah!
Shut him up.
you're mouthing on.
Google, YouTube, da, da, da. No, I switched windows and it canceled out my temporary unmute.
All right, well,
So
please continue. This is great.
yeah, I was looking around for other questions. Earlier on, our friend Lawrence Gallion had a question about whether or not you believe, Dr. Herman, that things actually exist, because you were talking about metaphysics and being something about, I don't remember it clearly. So the relationship of metaphysics and ontology and what exists. Of course, if we're doing holistic stuff and we want to look at, that's what we're trying to do, to find truth, is to find out what we think exists, right? So and then so he was asking that, and whether or not you can ever transcend transcendence.
That is a really good question. Yeah, thank you for, sorry I didn't catch the name. Thank you for that question. That's really good and very deep. In my opinion, first, I would stop and make sure that he's using the word metaphysics in the way that I use it and my colleagues use it, the genuine hardcore science of non-physical, whatever non-physical means these days. Hopefully he's not talking about the philosophical metaphysics, because that's completely different. So, and then transcending transcendence, let me answer it this way, and Vance, since you looked at the question, you can tell me if this answers, please, or whoever asked the question can say so. Like I said before, the only way of forwarding things, advancing things, yourself and society, is really, unfortunately, to start with yourself. And if you're able to gain whatever knowledge in this life and multiple lives, if you believe in multiple lives, then you're going to be able to transcend yourself, of course. But I hesitate to answer his question thoroughly, because he says, can you transcend transcendence? Well, my first thought is, as an academic, what's your definition of transcendence? Because your definition, my definition is different. It's just like when someone asks me, do you believe in God? I never answer. My first question is, what do you mean by God? So it's very hard when you look at things holistically and you're very precise. It's harder to answer questions very quickly without getting the context. Now, why do we care about that? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Well, that's a good thing, because now you're thinking holistically. You're not just answering very quickly, oh, it means this. You didn't get the point. So hopefully, to go back and answer his question, I feel that you can transcend, there's no limitation to transcendence. I feel that you can transcend whatever level you are able to transcend, and there's no ceiling, there's no stopping point. If that raises above the demiurge, hopefully, or if that raises to the level of whatever you want to call it, the supreme being or the ultimate entity, whatever, or if one day you can become that supreme thing, because now you have surpassed all there is, including that one single entity. Now, I'm not saying I believe that or don't believe that. I'm just answering the question. So, and this touches upon all the distractions that, Vance, you talked about. You said, you made a beautiful statement when you said all those different things about academia and distractions and stuff like that. And if you're able to see things holistically, you're able to pick out the distractions. Another distraction is all this social media and stuff. Every damn person, you put out something that means a lot, like save this person or save these group of people from torture. What do people do? Like, what the hell does that mean? And then they go on with their life. So it's all distractions, and people think that, retweeting it's going to do a damn thing. One of my colleagues, who's a very good futurist, he's got 9 acronyms after his name. He said one tweet years ago beautifully. He said, enough standing in unison and retweeting. It's time to do something. Now, not instilling violence or any of that stupidity like that. The fact that I have to say that clause is a hint that we're in the wrong society. Because if you're educated, you shouldn't have to say that. So, and then all these different things of, like you said, Vance, with the I made some notes here about the distractions and academia, who's really in for it. Well, it's just like JFK. My favorite part by far in the movie JFK with Kevin Costner and all the big actors and actresses is when he meets Mr. X. And I actually talk about this a lot. And when Kevin Costner swears he has the truth, he's like, okay, I know who did it. It was Oswald, all that stuff. He goes to Mr. X, and you remember what happens? If you don't remember this, please go back and just Google this. It's like a 10-minute clip. It's beautiful, and that's exactly what the distractions mean for people. So Kevin Costner swears he has the idea, and Mr. X tells him, no, you don't have the idea. You got to think of who profited from this, who went bankrupt recently, which bankruptcy was who was a benefactor of that bankruptcy, how many helicopters been shot down. Well, who makes helicopters? Who had the contract with this? You have to look at so much crap. That's what we talked about before, Miguel and Vance, in the beginning of this interview. It's so convoluted, this system. You can't even imagine it. And that's not a joke. So why are we talking about that? If you're able to see through that and have this at the front of your mind, because most people, when they talk about psychology, they say something like, oh yeah, I know that. Or, yeah, I know that. You don't know it. If you knew it, it would be at the front of your mind. There's a difference between knowing something and realizing it. I could be sitting here in my shorts, know I have to leave at 9 a.m. for a meeting, and it's 8:50. I'm like, yeah, I know I gotta go. And someone says to me, hey, don't you gotta go? I'm like, oh crap, I didn't realize the time. You knew it, but you didn't realize it. And if you don't have this ability to see foundations holistically, habitually, you're not going to fare well in whatever you do. Whether you're seeking the truth as a Gnostic, you're going to be distracted by social media, but just like Kevin Costner was in JFK, you're going to not be able to see the true whatever strings or systems that are being pulled into place to keep you blind and stupid, such as, why is academia doing things this way instead of this way? Well, you have to see through it all. And one of the ways that we talk about with like the greatest thinkers, they were able to see foundations across different landscapes. If you have that skill, it doesn't matter what you study. It doesn't matter what your job is. You can take that in many different arenas, problem solving, data entry. If you work in McDonald's, you can work better and get the promotion much faster. It doesn't matter because you're skilled in seeing the foundations. Do we have time to do a psychological drill? I'm totally not knowing what the time is here.
No, time is not an issue. Please do.
Okay, cool. If I may here, let me get up and let me give you one example. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to acquire or see or learn the ability to see the foundation of something that can be applied in every aspect, because the universals, every solution to every problem, and I mean every problem, is always hidden in plain sight around all of us. So how this electricity is working has universals and secret principles that's similar to how the human body is working, to how you make a cup of coffee. And I'm being very literal here. That's not junk. I'm being very serious. So let's look at that. So we want to look at I hope you can see that, the word read.
Yes, I see read.
Okay, read. No.
In all capitals. Red rum. No, I'm sorry, read.
Read.
No, stop reading it backwards. Oh my God. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to practice what I said, taking something at the foundation and applying it to everywhere as a universal. So let's look at the word read. What's the definition of the word read? So everyone in the chat, if you want to get involved, please write the definition of the word read. How would you define read? And then if Vance, if you can read something, or if no one writes anything, and maybe Vance or Miguel, you want to try, just yell it out.
Okay, I'm watching the chat.
Okay. So how do we define read?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay between the our broadcast and that, so it might take a few seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the interpretation of symbols, although that's probably not as surface as it should be.
Okay, interpretation of symbols. Okay, can I go on that, or do we have something else, Vance?
I'm still waiting. I don't see anything.
Okay, no problem. We'll go with that because.
Oh, comprehension. Somebody said comprehension.
Crispy.
Just the word comprehension.
Yeah. Comprehension, just that word.
Okay.
Oh, my mind looks at
Jason
the text and
Cham.
my inside converted to machine code.
Yeah. Jason
No,
Chambers, how are
that's
you
that's
doing?
compiler.
That's it. That's the answer. Okay. Okay, so let's go with those two there. Interpretation of symbols and then comprehension. Okay, so those are quite good, especially the interpretation of symbols. Not that I'm siding with Miguel because he's the host of Aeon Byte here today. It's Saturday at 9 to 10:30 p.m. Chicago.
I can put you on mute if you mess with this demiurge, man.
Yeah, trying to give you commercial. So yeah, interpretation of symbols and comprehension. Okay, now why are we doing this? Well, we have to come up with the word read, a definition that works in every situation and it can never be destroyed no matter what. That's where the greatest thinkers, and if you can see through all the distractions in, not in Gnosticism, but in your journey in Gnosticism and society and all that stuff, you're able to see things much clearer and speak better and solve problems far better holistically. So the word read, we have interpretation of symbols. That works, and comprehension. That works, but what about blind people? Blind people are able to read Braille. Now, Miguel, your definition still works, interpretation of symbols. So that is a good definition.
Right.
Comprehension, technically it works, but just saying one word comprehension is not really a definition in this case. Sometimes it is, but in this case, it's too limited. Also, there's another problem with both definitions. What about when you go and you read somebody? What about when you read someone's body language?
Right.
So
Facial.
you can say, you can classify the entity, in this case a human, as a symbol, or they're giving symbols. You can, and you can get away with it, but that's kind of borderline. It's not very precise. And comprehension, again, it's a little tricky. So the definition of read is getting a little bit unstable here as we move forward. Now, there's another problem with that definition of read. You can't use it in this situation. What about the time when all of us either have felt this or know someone who's felt it? When you go into a house, let's say there's a husband and wife, okay? I'm the salesperson, the real estate agent, trying to sell the house. Husband says, wow, this is beautiful. And the wife says, yeah, this is really good. It's not too bad. And the husband says, well, do you not like it? I love this thing. And she's like, yeah, it's not bad. And then I, as the real estate person, say, okay, you don't like it as much. It's fine. But what's wrong with it? I'm just curious. She'll say something usually like, oh, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not me. Something like that is said, whether it's a car or a dress or a house, whatever, it doesn't matter. It could be a person too. Not that you're buying a person, but that you're interested in becoming a friend or something. So it doesn't work in that sense. What are you reading? How is read associated with that on a scientific standpoint, not nonsense? Well, you're reading in psychology, there's something called atmospherics, variables that make up an atmosphere. So we're talking about painting, colors, sights, sounds, smells, fluidity, such as feng shui, if you believe in that, but fluidity nonetheless. So what you're doing is you're reading subconsciously the variables of that atmosphere that are making you like it or not like it. Most of the people that live and die on this planet can't communicate those things. They say something like I said before, oh, I don't know what it is, I just don't like it. But what it is all these variables collectively creating an atmosphere that doesn't resonate with that one person. And our example is the wife. So she is reading the atmospherics subconsciously. So interpretation of symbols, shaky, okay.
You got to
And
expand it.
comprehension, and sorry, Vince?
You have to expand it. It's really ingesting of information, perceived
Yes.
information from
Yes.
any sensor, from, any way possible, and then constructing a model of presumably reality outside and refining or recreating a piece of what you think is reality inside your mind.
Correct.
So that you can manipulate it, make
Correct.
conclusions from it.
Yes.
React to
Thank
it.
you, Vince. Absolutely. And there are more problems with this. So now this is debatable, but it does exist. Now let's say if I hold a piece of paper up here, hold a piece of paper up here, okay? And I do it very quickly. I just write one letter per piece of paper. And all I'm going to do is, okay, Miguel and Vance, this is going to be your psychological test. All I'm going to do is very quickly for 1 second, hold up something. It's going to have a letter. You say A, B, C, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. So some people would argue that you're reading that letter. You don't really have to understand much aside from the psycholinguistic processing of that letter. So it's kind of shaky, both definitions. So if I do A, B, C, well, technically you're reading, but you don't really need any context for that. So it's a shaky situation, these definitions. So why are we talking about this on Gnosticism, on Idiocracy with Gnosticism? We're talking about this because if you don't have the ability to see things properly, to see things holistically, you may very well be a very good Gnostic or a very good leader or a very good manager. Necessarily, you don't need these things. But if you want to advance to the highest level possible, you must, there's no question, you must be able to see things very fast at the foundation level, so you're not wasting your money, your hard-earned money, on books or programs or time. You're not wasting your time. And in my opinion, most importantly, you're not wasting your mentality, your frustration on things that you should never have even dove upon, because you can see the foundation. You're not, distracted from all the glitter, the superficial stuff. So going back to read, one definition of this that works is the taking in of information through the senses. That's it. The taking in of information through the senses. Now, there could be more definitions that follow that premise, but that's a definition I'm going to leave everyone with today, because that definition can never be destroyed. If you're blind, you're reading Braille, you're still taking information through the senses, through touch, through haptics. If you're reading someone's body language, you're taking in the information, the variables, the physics, the energy, whatever you want to call it, and through your senses, which whatever you want to say is the sixth sense, your whatever sense, your visual cortex, whatever, your sight. So why did we do that? Well, we did that because if you're able to take the definition of the word read, or to take a subject and really drill down in it, really dissect it, you're going to be a much better performing, a high performing individual when you're seeking enlightenment, when you're trying to destroy idiocracy. You're able to elevate yourself and then hopefully help elevate others, because you changing the system, that probably is not going to happen anytime soon.
That's awesome. So I guess the question I would have, you keep, you're bringing in Mitch Horowitz, and I remember afterwards you said, man, you challenged me more than anybody. I didn't think I was actually asking Mitch a lot of questions. In fact, there were so many questions I wanted to ask him, like, why are you a communist Satanist? Which he does kind of tongue in cheek. I think he just enjoys. But Mitch also is really open-minded and great. Like, he is a liberal, but he's actually a liberal. Like, for example, he'll defend Ayn Rand, not because he believes in her philosophy, but he thinks, like you said, there's a holistic Ayn Rand. There's a whole story to her. There are valuable ideas she had, and she had shortcomings and all that. So Mitch Horowitz also takes that approach to any subject. He'll defend alt-right just as he'll defend communists. So the question is, how do we find out what the foundation is? Like in our exercise, what's the foundation of read? Or when you look at companies, what is their foundation?
Well, that's an exceptional question. You really challenged me, Miguel.
Yeah, you're going to bitch me out after this interview. What is wrong with you?
So the foundation, going back to my answer, that questions, if you understand things holistically and if you're precise, questions are not easy to answer. Most questions are not easy to answer. So the foundation, well, what's the definition of foundation? Foundation is the furthermost level that you can go down, obviously. Well, level of what? So to answer your question, I want to preface it with that, because technically there's no foundation. You can forever drill down. We thought the organs were the foundation. We thought cells were the foundation. We thought atoms were foundation. We think quarks are the foundation. I'm sure 50 years from now we're going to find something else, and then there's going to be something else. So to answer your question, the only thing you can do, which you should do, is studying foundations where you know they can't be destroyed across different landscapes. You must use them across different landscapes. If you stay in your subject, that is not holistic vision. That is only being an expert in that vision, in that field. And there are too many people that are experts in that field, such as, if you use holistic vision in one field or 3 fields or whatever, it's not holistic vision. You have a good vision in those 1, 2, or 3 fields. So to answer your question, it depends on what you're looking at. If you're wanting to look at truth, well, look at the truth from religion A's aspect and religion B's aspect, and see the premise, the bottommost premise, the foundation, see how it applies to Mithraism or to Christianity or to Gnosticism or to this religion. And then when you finish that, when you have something that cannot be destroyed no matter what, it's the foundation. Now, don't stop there. Take it and say, okay, this foundation is pretty damn good. It works in all these different landscapes. Now let me get out of religion and spirituality. Let me see how this foundation, this premise, this universal, this principle, whatever you want to call it, works in the field of management. Most people will stop there and say, what the hell are you talking about? That's not even possible. That's oranges and apples. Immediately they don't have the vision. So see how that premise holds up in management. When you're done there, okay, this worked pretty well. Let me see if it can help me learn better and influence and advance myself in meditation. How does this premise in spirituality and management relate to the premise of meditation or neuroscience neuroscience of meditation. So when you build upon these things in the beginning, it's going to be stupidly complicated and very difficult, obviously, because you're not used to this. But keep at it and make sure that when you see these things and you're building this landscape, and you're connecting things, you will then say, holy crap, there really is a system of interconnectivity, and it is really related. And most people that you talk about in your spheres of influence and outside your spheres of influence will say that's just crazy. But when you start to explain it, then you're going to very quickly elevate yourself to the level of whoever, Noam Chomsky or Mitch Horowitz or Miguel Conner and Van Soki here on Aeon Byte.
Maybe Vance. Speaking of Vance, any questions? I think I saw briefly somebody ask about spotting a guru, and you had a good joke about that. Let us know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a question like, how can you tell that a guru is, how they put it? How do you tell that a guru is, how do you know a guru is false? And the answer is, he's breathing.
That's pretty good.
I put that in there because I have the saying that the only good guru is a dead guru. So
kill the Buddha on the road, as we keep talking about.
Yeah, you got to do that.
And that's when you have all the knowledge anyway, when you're out of this planet. Hopefully.
There you go. And yes, for the audience, this is HermanSJr. I will have show notes. I will have information on his site and everything. It's fascinating information and events. Any questions for the audience? Or do you have a question?
I'm looking. I was going to ask you, Herman, about the trivium. You were talking about the liberal arts, and isn't that the foundation, the trivium? And there was one other term. Gosh, senior moment here. What was the other thing that went along with the trivium? Do you use that in your
program?
Yeah.
Do I use liberal arts in my program? Yes.
Well, the trivium in particular, trivium.
The trivium?
Yeah, the trivium.
Was it the grammar, logic, and rhetoric? Although some people have the quadrivium. I forgot what's the fourth one. But anyway, I think it's something that Plato did about how to think and see through the veils of reality.
Yeah.
one of the things that I've said for many years is I don't like, one of the things that helps spread misinformation and, to be more blunt, stupidity, is if you're not an expert on something, don't say anything. So you, otherwise you may say something, you may have great intentions, but these X amount of people who heard you won't be at your level, perhaps won't be at your level, and they're going to perpetuate it, and it's going to become law. So they're going to say, yeah, my friend said this. No, it's true, he said it. And that
Or what?
helps.
Yeah, that's social media for
Of
or
course.
worse. They'll get the talking points of the Republican Party or the church or the Democrat Party, and then they'll
Yeah.
everybody's parroting this sort of canned answer knowledge. But like you said, nobody knows what the hell they're talking about when they would bring more value if they kept their mouth shut. What's the old saying in the monasteries? If you cannot improve on the silence, don't say anything. And when it
Yeah.
comes down to it,
Yeah.
99% of what we say in this life does not improve the silence. I know most of that comes out of my mouth does not improve the silence. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it's the echo chamber, right? I mean, information is living. That's what people don't get. People think information, oh, like it's a book.
Plasmate.
Yeah, but yeah, the living plasmate. But because if you say something, and in a network of propagating information, it takes on a life, and it can go around. It accumulates things, accumulates garbage onto it, or maybe it gets clean. And like the academia was, I think, designed to try to purify the echoes and to trim them off and to try to make them consistent, which is where we get all this orthodoxy from, right? We want to purify the echoes that, and what do you have when you go down through the ages? You have to echo the information because people die, new people take it on. So it's kind of like the game of telephone, and we always have to deal with that. Then people put little sabotage things in it, misinformation to manipulate. It's an interesting, like you say, when you see the whole thing, it's kind of scary because it's difficult to control when something gets out there. Memes, all these things.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to remember that what you both said is perfect. You have to remember that information is what creates living systems and inanimate systems too. It creates things, both animate and inanimate. So yeah, you're right. Information is a living thing, or whatever phrase you want to use. So the reason I started about the opinion thing is to answer your question, Vance. I'm not versed with that tribune, so I'm never afraid of saying I'm not versed with something or I don't know something. And that's something that I liked about the founder of the Venus Project, Jack Fresco. He always said, he was an engineer, I don't know if you know about him. He always said, if you don't know something, opinions are bad, just don't say anything, unless you're really educated on it, and that means you know it. So to answer your question, Vance, I use only two things in my program, only two. One is psychological strategy to revamp someone's vision and mindset, and the second thing is the system of interconnectivity. So I show how universal principles are hidden in plain sight all around us. And if you can see these things and tap into them at the foundation, only when I use foundations, then you're able to learn religions better, or learn true enlightenment, or learn the real guru from the alive guru from the dead guru. And you're able to pick up on things much faster. So I only use those two things. Now, within those two categories, liberal arts is a huge part of what I use. And like I said before, I don't know if I said this off air or on air, the exercises that I use are designed, they're deceptively simple, such as the word read, but this is a very low level exercise. This is one of the first exercises I give to someone who's just coming in, doesn't know anything. So they build upon this. They're exercises that you would swear you know, but when you think about it, it's like, wait, I don't know what the hell to do or say. And you always want to keep your mind off balance, just like in martial arts, when you're fighting someone, if they know what you're going to do, they're able to counter you. But if you're able to throw them off guard, get them off balance, then you're able to surprise them. It's the same thing with your mind. You want to do different techniques to get your mind off balance, because the reason why we can't learn things as well when we're when we're adults, is when we're kids, is not because of inability or anything. It's only because the brain is just like a muscle. When we're children, everything's new to us. So every stimulus is new to us. So we're learning and reacting upon it. But when we get older, we get used to this sunlight. We get used to this color. We get used to that. So our brain becomes more used to things, and things run on autopilot. And when you do that over decades, years and decades, then you're not going to be able to learn things as well. Just like when you go to the gym. When you do the gym and you do it every single day, you're increasing your muscle, you're using new muscles, you're building new muscles. When you don't go to the gym, your muscles perhaps atrophy. They at least get used to not being used. And then when you try to use them, it's going to be harder. So it's the same concept. And that's one tiny example of interconnectivity between learning and exercising. And if you're able to see these things through liberal arts, through Gnosticism, through studying the true way of advancing yourself, ascending through transcendence, you're able to come out as a much better whatever you are, whatever you want to be.
So the read exercise, what is the goal of that? To sort of get people the idea of having a consensus definition, to get down to basics when they communicate, to not assume that everyone, I mean, like, I have a day job, so of course it's always a problem because, like you said, everybody can use the same term across the office, but all of us have completely different contexts of what it means, or how much weight is behind these words. So that basically everybody get down to basics with language and come to a consensus.
Yeah, the reason for the question read or the drill read is to get you to do a few things, to get you to see how limited your vision and mindset are, and to get you to see the first step, because again, this is one of the first exercises I ever give, to get you to see the first step of walking towards the path of holistic vision, and getting used to breaking your mind down to feeling a little bit frustrated, not on this because it's pretty easy exercise, but on the other exercises more so, but getting used to that feeling of uncomfortability, excuse me. So you can look at things and say, when you leave me, like this happens all the time. Everyone who's ever gone through this exercise, whether they become a client of mine or not, they say the same thing. They say, I went home and I looked at this and I asked my wife or my husband this, and I started seeing things a little bit differently. Now, that's just from one tiny, deceptively simple drill. So this is the introduction to be able to help you not create a consensus across society like you were saying, Miguel, but to help you to see things better, to create a consensus in your mind of holistic vision, to get you in your brain is as one in holism. So you're able to move forward and see things on a much better level. So all these different things, they're designed for that. Remember, going back to what we said before, unfortunately, the best way to advance the world is to advance yourself. And by doing all this and seeing things differently and holistically, you're improving yourself, of course. You're improving your knowledge of transcendence and ascension, whether you're Gnostic or non-Gnostic, it doesn't matter. And you're in turn letting that character, that core, bleed into other arenas of your life, such as work, education, how you raise your child. You're going to be thinking on a far different level than you ever have before. So that's the reason for this. That's the premise of this exercise, and the premise of all the exercises. This is just an introductory one.
Wonderful. And so, for example, at your site, you give your courses that somebody can take. But if you were to suggest maybe a book or something that could, again, get somebody to start thinking more holistically, do you have a book or two that you could suggest to people? And of course, I say book because it is true, unfortunately, in our society. And sometimes, again, I am not perfect. We start to get our information from the internet, from YouTube, sometimes too much from podcasts, instead of just getting down to that, to read, R-E-A-D, the book, interpret those symbols or absorb that information. There's just something about reading a book that is still unique and much more helpful.
I agree. Yes, I definitely do. I have two that come to mind. One is a little biased. It's my book. Uh, it's the second book that I wrote. It's the textbook of this entire program. And as a matter of fact, it's actually the textbook of this academy that I'm at here in India, Wright Academy and Research Center. They were very nice to allow me to broadcast here, use their whiteboard in their facilities. I teach here, and they use this textbook because they actually help to have people certified under my program. So the textbook is, the book that I wrote is actually a textbook on this program to be able to acquire holistic vision for whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. So that's my first recommendation. Again, it's very biased. But my second one that's not biased is a book that's called How to Think About Weird Things. How to Think About Weird Things. And it is definitely the best book I've ever come across. For some, no, let me take that back. It's gone through, I think, 6 or 7 revisions. All of them are quite good. The one that I know about, I believe, was the 3rd revision with an orange couch on the front of it. But the reason I say that is because it really throws you into situations that you don't understand. And that's where you want to be. As I said before, with the principle of off balance. The principle of off balance, it tells you how do you overcome your opponent in martial arts. It tells you how to create more neural pathways properly in line with what you want to do. It helps you also help with pain management, the principle of off balancing. It helps you acquire more clients if you're a lawyer, the principle of off balancing, or if you're a marketer, whatever, it doesn't matter. So most people listening to this show, especially if they just come in now, they say, what the hell is he talking about? Well, if you don't know these things, if you don't know the universals that are related to seemingly unrelated things, you're not going to see these things. And that book helps, How to Think About Weird Things, helps you to put you in certain situations that you're not used to. And you want to be comfortable. You want to keep your brain off balance, keep your mind off balance. If it knows what you're doing, it's going to be on autopilot and it's not going to benefit you. You're going to be hitting a plateau. It's going to stagnate. So that book is really good. I read it a long time ago and I would highly recommend it. In addition to my book, of course, if you're so interested. But
what's the title of your book?
My book is, I got it right here.
Now, I've read your first book, which I enjoyed, but I haven't, show the audience.
Thank you. You know, to be honest, my titles are so long with my articles that I write and my books. A lot of times I forget the names. I go to the bookstore. This really happened. I go to the Harvard bookstore. Harvard bookstore is one of the places that sells my books. But now the book is only sellable through the program. I don't sell it as an alone thing. It's only gotten or had through the program.
So you can't get it at Amazon or anything?
No, it's not available anywhere else. So this is it, resetting your mindset using universal foundations that surround you every day. Mm-hmm. And the forward is done by Dr. Ruben Lambert. He's a PsyD, Doctor of Psychology. And it is an interactive workbook. So it's very concise. It's about 150 pages, no nonsense. Like I said before, I do not tolerate nonsense whatsoever. And it's very direct, very concise. Do this, this principle means this, and it tests you on every chunk or section or chapter, whatever. And it tests you, okay, how does the universal principle seen in gangster rap help with an Olympic swimmer or help with establishing a business that's not musical? And yes, that is one of the examples in here, listening to gangster rap. So you want to put yourself in situations that are uncommon, that are unfamiliar. Of course, legal and safe situations. Again, it's stupid that we have to say those clauses, but that proves that the society is not what it should be. You want to put yourself in situations that make you uncomfortable or unknown, again, legal and safe. That you don't know. So you are forced to open up your mind and experience things, see things, hear things, feel things that you would never otherwise experience. So if it means taking another route home, if it means walking barefoot in the park when you would swear you would never do it before, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If it means watching a drama or listening to country music, it doesn't matter. You want to get your brain used to saying, okay, I'm obeying you. I'm watching everything. I'm not running on autopilot. One of the other ways you can do these things very quickly is write with your non-dominant hand. So one exercise in my program Yeah, one exercise in my program says, okay, write a certain amount of, write some text with your non-dominant hand. How did that feel? Okay, now write it backwards with your dominant hand, like Leonardo da Vinci style. Now write it backwards with your non-dominant hand. And for the people who are ambidextrous, you can go ahead and choose whatever is your less dominant hand, or just go straight to the backwards writing, because there's no way you're going to be used to backwards writing, whether you're ambidextrous or not, unless you're Da Vinci, of course. And then also write it upside down. Write the text upside down, but don't shift the paper, or don't use a mirror, don't use any instrument. So why does this matter? Why the hell are we talking about writing? We're talking about idiocracy and Gnosticism, not in Gnosticism, but helping Gnosticism by getting rid of the idiocracy. That's what we mean to say here on AM, right? So all these different things. Well, you want to always use different tools and instruments to help you knock your mind out of its stagnation. And all these different tools will help you. It's no different than a bodybuilder doing the, I don't know the names of the exercises, the deadlift or the bench press or something like that. Yeah, those are the bigger exercises, but the other exercises such as diet, such as, you know, not eating this, or even using that hand grip thing. Forgive me, I don't know the names of these things, but that V-shaped thing where you grip and you increase your hand strength. They're just small exercises that get you to that goal of, in this case, holistic vision and seeing things at the foundation. So when you arm yourself with a book for Gnosticism, you're able to cut through the depths of it, through the foundations, through all the noise and distractions. Also, when you're at work, when your boss gives you a task, you never just do that task. Never. That is a failure. That is a failure. Always look far into the future. Always strategize as far into the future as you can possibly go and across landscapes as you can possibly do. That is a true success. So for example, I'm going to give something very simple here. Let's say there's a secretary, okay? Two secretaries. One secretary, they give him the same job. One secretary is given the job of creating a spreadsheet for her boss, the director of something. And she does it. It's a beautiful spreadsheet. She's done. Boss loves her. But the other one, before she does any creation, she says, okay, I want to impress the hell out of my boss and show him or her that, sorry for saying a secretary is automatically female. I just noticed I did that. Let's go with that though. Sorry, my boss is going to really love this if I think long term. So what does this spreadsheet accomplish? Let's get some context. Let's get the foundation. Well, it's going to serve this purpose. Okay, well, who can also use these variables? Who can also benefit from this report? Wait a minute, the sales team uses something similar. So if I can incorporate some sales variables, maybe call a friend who's in the sales team, or get someone in sales team who I don't even know and say, look, I'm doing this project, let's do this. And then I say, wait, sales in my department pull from legal. Let me go to legal. So now you see where I'm going now. Now we're going back to the system of interconnectivity, the foundation. So when that second secretary gives the project that is now usable and interconnected with the sales variables, with legal department, far better than the first one can even ever contemplate, the first secretary. So that's what you want to do. These are simple examples, but as you go further and further, whether it's my book or your own venture, whatever, you're going to be building upon these things, and you're going to be able to create spider webs, interconnectivity about things that you would swear would never be connected. And you're able to see things and advance on levels that no one can possibly even come close to touching you. That is why this whatever you want to call it, this program, this work, this expertise is used from me by different entities that are seemingly unrelated, law enforcement, call centers, sales agents, because it's not a bunch of, oh, it's generalization crap. No, I don't tolerate nonsense, like I said many times, or stupidity. It's very hardcore results, talking about dollar signs, percentage points, very specific, and you're able to accomplish these and help combat that idiocracy and help hopefully combat those systems that perpetuate the idiocracy, at least to some level.
Wow, that was really well said, and thank you. Well, as we get here to the end, any last questions, Vance, from the audience or yourself? I guess I was going to say, yeah, I love it all. I love the writing with your opposite hand that you use? I guess, would that include masturbation? I had to say it. Sorry, I had to
I
say
have certain clients and university students on that are going to be watching this. I can't talk about that.
Okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, your dominant hand will give you a divorce, you know, if it catches you going out with the other
Sorry, you
one.
guys are on mute. What'd you say?
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah,
Just forget about it. Let's let Google censor it. Anyway,
yeah,
Vance, any last questions from the
yeah.
audience?
One hope this may not be a good last question, but do you know anything about NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and do you use it in
Yes.
your work? Is it valid?
That's a Thank you for that question. That's a very good question that comes up when I'm talking about something quite a few times. There's two NLPs. There's natural language processing, which is related to AI, machine learning, and then there's neuro linguistic programming, which is what you're speaking of, Vance, obviously.
Right.
I'm going to default to naivety. I'm not too versed with that. I have researched it superficially. In my opinion, the research that I've led to makes me say that I'm not sure, because it is based supposedly on linguistics, and that's one of my master's degrees, like I told you. But I'm not qualified enough to say yes or no. And I'm going to be very careful, since we all said information is alive, and that's completely true. I don't want to perpetuate anything that may be incorrect if I'm in error. So I'm sorry, Vance. It's not something I use. It's not something that I'm looking forward to using. I'm not looking into, seeing where that goes or anything like that. I'm going to stay with looking at the foundations of things and not really trying to program, people or whatever phrase you want to say. So I'm sorry, I can't speak educatedly about that.
Yeah, I've had difficulty even, looking up what it is or whatever. It seems that there's some sort of book that purports to explain it. Frogs to Princes, I think it is. But I think I looked at it years ago and I go, what is this? But, I've been kind of wondering. We do have one more question. Someone wants to know, in fact, Joyce, are you serious? Wants to know, what exactly is your job title?
Sure. My job title is a global change agent. So what that means is, now there's a difference between change agent in management and change agent in what I do. There are very few change agents in this world that do what I do, and I'm the only one that does it to this depth and using psychological strategy and the system of interconnectivity. Now, change agent in management is something completely different. It just basically means, I won't go into it, but very basically put, just means someone who's an agent of change for a new process in management. It's far more limited. It works. I'm not slamming it or anything. Forgive me if I sound that way, but it's not what I do. So global change agent, because I help change, I'm an agent that helps change people in their entire paradigm. Your thinking foundation today, my programs are usually 3 weeks long, because that's what you really want when you're talking about ripping the hell out of your thinking foundation. There are some shorter time frames possible. So that's what I do, just the change agent in transformation of the thinking foundation. You're going to be completely different and see the world totally differently, for both the good and the bad when you leave the course.
That is wonderful. For the audience, again, I will have Herman's address and information in the show notes. But you can go to drhermansjr.com. That's it, right?
Yes, Doctor is DR.
DR. Okay, awesome. If you want more information, and check him out. And again, he's been on the show twice. Both shows you can find on YouTube. Yes.
3 times.
3 times, I know, but I think 2 are on YouTube for sure, because I was looking at today. So just do Herman SJR AM Byte on YouTube, and you can find it again. As a bonus section, I'm going to include the last interview we did in the audio for members. That's the one we talked about consciousness and quantum physics, and the work that you and Anthony Peake had done some work together. So this is more fun, but I'm going to include it for the members, so they can enjoy and get a holistic view of Herman's work, because
There you go.
So, but yeah, we've come to the end. For people in the chat room, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we answered your questions and you socialized well. And again, this will be out in audio version in about a day or two when I can get it out. YouTube will be out in a few minutes, usually within an hour once we say goodbye. But we have come to the end. Vance, thanks for being here, keeping us company and keeping the chat room company.
Wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Thank you. Always great to have you. And Herman, it's been great to have you back here on Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio, Aeon Byte Live.
You too. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to see you again, Miguel. Thank you, Vance, for your help in having me on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
We enjoyed it. So to everyone out there, thank you very much. Thanks for being yourself, your true self. And I hope you have found the tools to, again, find that self-knowledge to get you out of this prison and get a little bit smarter. And hopefully we can stem the tide of idiocracy. I doubt it, but at the very least, we can have a good time and help others. What can I say?
Yes, agreed. Yeah.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.